Sheldon Mundle. I'm the Group CIO for Jamaica Broilers. It's a pleasure to be here to discuss this because we're pretty excited about what Nutanix was able to do for us. I'm going to give you some overviews. I'm going to tell you about the challenges we have and some of the benefits of using the solution. So, JB. This is Jamaica Broilers, which I think is the best kept secret in Jamaica because a lot of people don't realize we're beyond Jamaica. We operate in Haiti and the USA as well. Actually, we dominate in the USA for what we do. We operate several different types of businesses, a plant, feed mill, hatcheries. We contract chicken farmers, and we have some retail operations as well in Jamaica and also in the US. We contract and employ well over 1,000 people, and the year end last year we did about 350 million in revenue. So it's a strong company working in multiple countries, and the demand is very strong. All right? To give you a sense of IT, I wanted to give you a sense of the operations of IT. At any given time, we have 30 employees and contractors. Depending on the projects, that number goes up a lot. We have one primary data center today, which is in Jamaica. Lots of data. We have lots of servers out there. And I'll get more into the servers as to what we did. We have a number of business applications, some that's IT focused, some that's focused in the production area of the plant. We have tickets, emails, we have 17 locations. It's a decent sized operation that covers multiple countries. So what's the challenge? This is the challenge that was presented to IT. What was that? About over the past year and a half, 2 years, maybe even 3, depending on who you speak to in the room. It's been a long-standing challenge. We wanted to make sure that there was high availability of the data center. There's strong product demand. There's a lot of, all the markets we're in, we're asked to produce more and more and more. JB is doing pretty well across the group. So with that comes the expectation that the system availability will be up. Some of our facilities run 24 hours. So we need to reduce our downtime and make sure the plant could operate as much as possible. We also had to support, like I said, 3 regions, and each of those countries have different holidays, different schedules. It's challenging to do that all from one data center. The operation was initially built for Jamaica, but we introduced operations in the US and Haiti, and we did not scale with the business at that time. So first, you have to see how things go. And then after a while, the demands were such that we just realized we need to do something else. And the application transactions were slowing down because you're adding more staff, there's more production requirements, more processing requirements. So the application started slowing down because we were running on a MPLS network across the region, and there were some challenges. I mean, to give you a sense for, I should have put a slide in here showing just how far we reach, but we go as far as Iowa, and we're in Haiti. So from here to Iowa, imagine the latency and the impact to the systems. And for me, the biggest challenge was we need to meet 1 to 4 and keep our costs down. There's no, we're in the poultry industry, eggs, chicken, feed, baby chicks, to tell the business that sure, we could do this, but we need to triple the budget. You could imagine the response that we're getting, right? Because our competitors don't necessarily spend as much as in IT as we do currently, or as we were doing then. So those were the challenges, and the goal for IT was to get all of this done, plus more, but keep the costs down. All right, so this is where it gets a little interesting. I consider myself an experienced professional. We could get this done. So we're going to install a new data center in the US and implement a local ERP for the US. Let's separate it. That's the sensible approach. The US is growing quickly, over 200% in the past 3-4 years. So why keep it all in Jamaica? Let's do this approach. Let's increase the speeds, improve network bottlenecks. I mean, that makes sense, right? Purchase more servers, virtualize more applications, replace the legacy SANs we have and get better capacity. Gustavo spoke to some of that. Exactly. I mean, that's what the experience tells us, right? Throw more at it. And hire some staff to support all of this. I think half the people in this room would say that's, based on experience, that's the approach you would take. What we ended up doing was this. We went to cloud where it made sense, and we maximized our ERP that's currently in the data center right now. We replaced the MPLS with a software-defined wide area network. This was a key ingredient for us for a number of reasons. It addressed the application speeds that we're currently facing. And that's another technology for another discussion, but software-defined ones, I encourage you to look at that. If you're ordering MPLS going forward, I don't want to take any money out of the telco's pocket, but actually, they're probably transitioning to it. I know their roadmap, they're transitioning to it. I'll say that. Just show them your interest, but that's a big ingredient in part of our success. Putting in a hyperconverged solution, and we transitioned to VMware as well. We made that decision for a number of strategic reasons, but we're still considering Acropolis. For a number of reasons, but it's VMware, we wanted to mitigate our risk as much as possible by going to something we're familiar with. And Acropolis is being tested, and it's looking good so far. So we also got away from SAN technologies. We have one SAN. I was kind of surprised that we still want to have one, but I think it's more on the development side. I don't think we're using it in production as much. And we trained existing staff we had, one of which is here, who was the key architect, the key admin working on all this. So that allowed us to redeploy staff where we needed it. We didn't have to hire this army. So if you contrast the two, based on the benefits we gained, we consider this a winning approach. This is what worked for us. And I'm going to, I'll talk about how what influenced me to switch over, because I've seen some of the faces and I've heard some of the comments, and it sounds risky. Like what made me take the plunge, but I'll get back to that. So why do we use it? I could read through this slide. I'll let you read through it for yourself. But for me, I wanted to make sure that we had some agility for the future. Everything is becoming more digital. If you apply the current or the experienced approach technologies, it's hard to pivot from that into a more digital roadmap when you consider integration with cloud providers and some of the cloud solutions, right? So being agile and flexible to either redirect network traffic or put workloads in the cloud or on-prem, whatever it needs to do, that requires a very agile solution going forward. The traditional approach of throwing more network and hardware, it's not going to get you there. You won't have the flexibility. That's what prompted us to go forward in the thinking. And if anyone has been, all you guys are mostly IT guys, so you understand when you have certain challenges and you're up at night thinking, how am I going to solve this with the budget I have? That was a constant play in my head. And to give you some insights as to what made me take the leap of faith going forward, I actually reached out to Info Exchange, that gentleman over there, and shared the perspective, wanted a business case to get all the investment made, logically go through it. I think we've all run business cases before. And the comment that Mundle of Info Exchange said to me that made me step back is he said, if you're going to invest all that money into refreshing your system, you're putting Jamaica Broilers back 10 years. I'm like, what do you mean by that? Right? I'm still terrorized by that thought. But it prompted me to look at the technology and make some calls to colleagues I have in the States or in Europe about this technology and how they were using it. I have some experience with like Bank of America. So you could imagine when you're acquiring a lot of companies, it gets complex. I used to support over 3,000 applications, many different kinds of servers, mainframes, you name it, Linux. And all of the guys that I used to work with and manage saying that slowly but surely they're looking at this because it simplifies the administrative costs and takes a lot of complexity out of what they're doing by going to hyperconverge. That's the impact, that the benefit that they're looking at. And then they said to me, but you shouldn't have that. You're just making chicken. You should have like one server, right? But the fact is there's a lot of technology that goes into producing the products we do. It's just another front, but there is. And there's a lot of data involved. So that's why we went here. And at the end of the day, the operational cost did not soar. You know, my CFO is a very savvy guy. He's an ex-IT guy. He was bracing for it. But the costs were as planned, and the delivery was as seamless as we planned. That I could tell you. All right, so I'm marching through this because I want to get to questions and answers, but I have a top 3 list that I think is pertinent and relevant to deploying this after you've taken a leap of faith and decide to either pilot it and adopt it. I think if you pilot it, you'll certainly adopt it. But after you get over that hump and the cost and the rest, and you see the benefits, I think you'll realize some of these benefits and things we've proposed here. So it says top 3 and I have 7, but work with me. I didn't want to remove any of these because they were so good and they actually came directly from the team. So stability was a big deal. Ease of management for the staff. Performance is great across the 3 countries. And again, part of that is the network connectivity. The energy footprint is a lot lower than we had before. And that's a big consideration here. Team members being freed up to do other tasks. It's not that they have now 20-hour work weeks. We just redirect them to other things to maximize their availability. SANs. I don't think of a SAN anymore. When I hear people mention SANs, immediately I think they're still on the traditional stack. Which is, you know, I have a telco background as well, so to say you're not using a SAN just sounds weird coming out my mouth. At least it did a year ago, right? And we consolidated a bunch of servers, at least 20. I think it's a little bit more than that, because I saw when they were coming out the data center and different places around. So those are the top benefits that we highlighting now. And there are others that you're aware of based on the earlier presentation. Challenges we had. When I raised this to the team and said, give me some of the challenges you guys have, it was interesting. They came back with one line. I said, we had one major challenge. I said, we have to come up with at least 3. But with the right partnership, we didn't find it extremely challenging. Getting downtime in the business to get it done was a challenge. Again, 24 hours. If you think about the product set, if you tell the plant we need to cut down, we need to shut you off the weekend, they'll push back and say, well, the chickens are grown and we need to process them. And in Jamaica, you don't want your chicken too big, right? You won't, if you don't. If KFC comes and the chicken is double the size, people here will say, what is this, steroids, what's going on? In the US, give me the bigger chicken. But down here, when the plant says, sorry, we have to go, it's a challenge to do that. So when Gustavo and Andel said, one day, one day, well, I could testify it was cut over in a day, and we spent another day testing rigorously. And it actually was running a day later. So with careful planning, I'm going to stress that. All right? Staff. So we have a small team of administrators, and the ability to support the business while planning and training, moving to Nutanix, for us, that was a challenge because we still have to run the business. You know, it's not like they just walk away. I don't have a project team separate from operational team here. It's people do a little bit of both, and I think everyone can identify with that. So I think partnerships are important, and we used Hyper-V initially because it was free. But for some other strategic reasons, we decided to move to VMware. We looked at AHV, but based on the timing and just us getting more comfortable with it, that was my decision to go to the VMware stack. All right. Lessons learned. The top one is the number one. We engage Info Exchange and Nutanix professional services because I just want to remove as much risk as possible. And with the planning and coordination, I think was pretty seamless. We did break it up. We did applications. I should say that. We did applications. We have a lot of applications. So we migrated that once. We're comfortable with it. Then we went to the database side because the database was sitting on a physical server. It was a massive database server. So we did this twice, right? 2 different runs, but each of them were overnight and kept going. Preparing the target environment for Nutanix. That mostly speaks to the network connections. So this chassis, as you would call it, with all the nodes involved, we have 10 gig nodes with redundant nodes for the network to make sure that we have as much redundancy as possible. The box is redundant in itself, but we made sure the network connections were such that it would meet the requirements. Again, it's all about availability, keeping it up. Before we were having the servers go down, I don't want to say too much, but it was going down frequently. Now our uptime on Nutanix, I think I've only heard of one glitch, and by the time I called Stacy, she said it's fixed. Still don't know what happened, but I was surprised. Like, wait a minute, what do you mean Nutanix? We could talk about the details later, but it wasn't Nutanix really. I think it's something we did on our side, maybe power trip or something. But the Nutanix has been solid, and the redundancy we built in has proven to be valuable. And the next bit is about partnerships. Again, we didn't have all the skills in-house. It's not like we went to a seminar like this, walked away, and did it. Info Exchange has been a valuable partner. Nutanix has been pretty good. I mean, exceptionally good, to the point where we engaged them on some other Microsoft activity to help us out. They had a professional service team that was pretty familiar and walked us through some things. So those are the top lessons we learned. I know I went through this very quickly, but I think the slides are self-explanatory. So to summarize where we are, we did both. It's not just that we did a server transformation. We also did a network one with the SD WAN, and the combination, I think, is enabling JB to meet the demands and even scale in a more agile way for the future. We have some digital thoughts that I won't get into now, but we now have a platform, an infrastructure where we intend to build on it in a smart way, where it makes sense. It also, and I didn't stress this enough, but if you do the math about what's required to replace all these servers and services and get a new tank, it's very cost effective, especially if you plan in capacity for the future. So when we did the math, it was almost like a no-brainer. I won't say that to good, I shouldn't be saying this to good stuff, because I want my, but it was cost effective compared to buying all the servers, hiring all the staff, buying the SANs, training people, the 24-hour operations. It just made sense in the dollars and cents was just quick. So that's the summary of what we were able to do. And I think that's it.
You said that the training on Nutanix, you had trained your existing systems admins.
Mm-hmm.
How did they adapt to the new type of probably process or platform?
You could talk to her in more detail. She's actually behind in the room, but that was a concern for me because the teams used to, any solution you're rolling out, the deployment of it is That's a risk with training. It was overnight. They just leveraged existing skill sets, and I think the user interface was simple enough for them to adopt quickly. He said training in an hour. I think it was pretty much going through it with them. It was. I heard no complaints. I was expecting. I had training budget to say, okay, you're gonna go off the training. They didn't utilize that. Any other questions? Yes.
So my question was, how was the transition from backing up to the SAN, where you store that data, to Nutanix? As in, I'm trying to understand, for instance,
Well-
where the data is stored and if there needed to be some kind of
Restoration,
migration
yes.
or, you know,
We will
with the
talk more
data.
about
What's that?
we will talk more about data protection and recovery.
Yeah,
Second.
there are different approaches to it, and I don't want to go into a lot of details, but the changes we made were minimal. We didn't notice a lot of impact. It wasn't very difficult. We
Okay.
already had a solution in place that took things off production and put it in a SAN right away.
Oh, okay.
And then from there, it will go. We're using the cloud, so I have stuff in Azure. I have things locally. You know, it's a hurricane belt, so you have to have multiple views. And we have a whole new solution plan around Zerto, which is something like Ream, if you're familiar with that, about how we're moving the data around for redundancy.
Okay, thank you. Then I guess we'll talk to Gustavo.
Afternoon, Mr. Mundle.
Hello.
I just want to get an idea from cradle to grave, the length of the project, from planning discussions to transition into Nutanix. Because you mentioned you have several locations, and so do I.
I think the project was about including procurement times and planning and getting the approvals and all the rest. From my perspective, I want to say it was 6 months. Well, 6 months, right? Yeah, 6 to 7 months.
For the actual procurement, it's in terms of timing, in terms of from order to delivery.
Right.
It was like four weeks, and then to get into Jamaica another 2 weeks.
End to end, it was about 6 months. But again, you do things in parallel, right? So the procurement, once the business case is approved, or the funding, you're working in parallel. So the order is off, but you're doing your planning and scheduling. You're looking at team. They're parallel activities. But within 6 months, we were thumbs up on it. We're very careful about the planning. I don't want to underestimate that. Take your time to plan. Map it out. What's going what? What's the load? How much space? What's the memory requirements? And Nutanix and InfoExchange can help you through that.
From a business standpoint, operationally, how did Nutanix change how IT operate and deliver the services? Or were there any application changes that you had to also make in order to move from your existing platform to this new platform?
So that's a great question, and I would direct some of that to Stacy as well. But from my perspective, just looking at the budget and the cost, it saved me a lot that I was planning in terms of staffing. I didn't have to run out and get a bunch of SAN experts or additional DBAs. I didn't have to go out and get a lot of system admins, especially to support a 24-hour operation. So from staffing, it saved me. From terms of processes, I think it streamline things for us. It's one chassis, it's one box, and the way things move around. I didn't hear, unless she was doing it magically behind the scenes and doing a lot. She probably was. We'll give her some credit. But I didn't hear a burden where we said, this is just too much. We need help because of Nutanix. If anything, it saved us from doing a lot more. The feedback has been pretty good. Firstly, there was a lot of anxiety about moving from the physical, the P2V play. We have a lot of physical servers, and one weekend I said all these applications are migrating, and we had a lot of testing across the region. Imagine test folks in Iowa, Florida, Pennsylvania, Haiti. So after you cut over to one day, everyone says, one day, let's test this thing, and they had their test scripts. So after that, there was a lot of accolades for the team because it's running, and to their ability to this day, it's running fine. They didn't miss a beat. We have an ERP solution that touches 80 to 90% of the operations, all the way into farms, all the way through. Everyone said it's running as expected. So there's a lot of confidence to the point where the feedback is saying because of the availability of the system staying up, they're now producing more. So it's reflective in the bottom line as well. Improved, big time. Transaction speeds. That, that's something, we're moving so quickly with that and other projects. I wish I had gotten firm benchmarks to show that. But when the users, for me, it's what the users say. How long does that screen come up where that's the real one. And everyone's saying, Sheldon, this is working great. People in Haiti, where their connections are low, super expensive, if you can imagine, all the way to Iowa. The response from the users were, this is running very quickly. We're liking it. So that was positive.
My question to you is, have you been able to establish the kind of savings that you have realized by moving from the traditional platforms and ways of doing things to this new method, and have you been able to kind of map out and compare not only the savings internally with staff and resources, but energy? So a year ago, what were you attributing your IT consumption to energy being, and what is it today?
That's a very good question and a very good point. So first I'm going to say this. That's one of the first questions I went to was, what's the energy like? And the feedback was, it's about the energy, of a toaster. I think that's the line you used. It's about the same consumption as a toaster, which I thought was a joke, thought was flippant. Looked at the specs, and it is aspect a lot lower than all the other services we spoke of. In terms of the cost savings, I see it on my budget because they charge me for energy every month. And you have to remember, we took out at least, according to this, at least 20 physical servers out. I think it's a lot more because I remember the team showing me pictures, and there were stacks of servers that they're saying they just took out the data center. And in my mind thinking, what are we going to replace that with? We don't need to. So the budget came down a lot. I can't tell you how much, except to say it's at least a 30% reduction in what's allocated for it based on year-over-year expenditure. Did we put in meters? I wanted to, but things move so quickly that we didn't have to do that. By removing the servers, having we went from 4 node to a 3 chassis stack, and there's all these empty racks, and then you see the finance team come in and say, this is what you paid before, this is what you pay now. It's measurable.
You have one SAN which is still retained for backups, and that's just for backups. But really and truly, the rest of it is practically gone, and it is replaced by 6 U's of server. So that you're talking about, you have a 42U rack, and you're only using 6 U's out of it. So think of 7 racks of servers and SAN reduced to 6 U's.
What was the expected return on investment, and is it on track?
So I'm going to say this. The ROI play, I started going down that track. And what I did was I said, well, this is also cost avoidance, right? And that's how I sold it. If you want this level of performance and you want to future-proof it, even 2 years, here's what we need to buy. And I showed you the experienced approach, as I said. And when you map that out and you said, well, it's very simple math. We could do this, or we could avoid some of these costs and do it this way. The options are clear. So for me, it was avoiding CapEx costs, which in Jamaican manufacturing, there's not a lot of CapEx dollars running around, right? We operate around 1 to 2% CapEx expenditure. It's not like the telcos where you're doing 15%. Most manufacturing companies 1 to 2. Financial institutions are more. So CapEx dollars are precious. So by avoiding that CapEx play, by going to, it was a easy sell. And the business benefits are there. I mean, can I go into transactional speeds and all the other rest? I probably could do that, but why? Moving on to the next one. Got the funds, it's working, the performance is there, the users are delighted by it, it's stable. The return on investment was good.
Okay, we have a question here.
Yes.
Yes. So on the
again on the process. So is it now that you're using something like Nutanix as opposed to when you had your physical servers? Is it more self-service in terms of how your operations and maybe your applications are developed in-house? Has that process changed to be more self-service as opposed to request-driven?
You know, we haven't maximized that aspect of it as yet. I mean, a lot of this is still new. We have, 30 other projects queued up and running. But what I would say is that if you think of building a new infrastructure, because that's what we were doing, and getting to the software side of the house, such as application development and the rest, by having a stable infrastructure, the network is solid, the server platform is solid. Now we're looking into introducing some of the more modern approaches, such as DevOps and application development and the rest, to sit on it. So we're about to dance in that arena more. But in terms of the process of how we work today, it's in transition. It's not complete yet. Did I answer your question? Yes. So.
No, I was gonna ask about that same DevOps thing. If the project has led to you, re-envisioning how you look
Absolutely.
at your applications, and
Yes.
has it exposed some of your legacy applications and say, hey, do I need to move to a new platform to better serve the business? That's where I was going, but you
Right.
can't answer it.
So ideally for me, I would have loved to just walk in, have a solid platform, and go right to the app stack, but we couldn't, because whether it's ERP and operation technology, it still needs to sit on a server, right? Today, especially in Jamaica, where going to the network wasn't, the connectivity between whether you use Flow or you use Digicel, it's not as, in the US I have over 100 carriers. It's not just AT&T and Verizon. Here it's 2. So I had to measure how we had to get that right before we transition over there. So in terms of DevOps and the rest, we have plans. We worked with a firm to give us a roadmap how to get that done. There's some things we will employ in the cloud. There's some things we're going to keep on-prem. I like what Gustavo said about being your own service provider, cloud provider. I think that makes a lot of sense, especially in Jamaica, where you don't want too many things outside the country. If you could do it for yourself, for privacy and all these other reasons, data control, there's a good reason for you to consume your own right here instead of leaving, if you can. Did that answer your question? All right.
Hi. You answered the question pretty much in a different way. I would ask. What one was I would ask was, your first foray into the arena began with the P2V. You moved from physical servers to virtual servers, and I think eventually you began to use more cloud services. Did you find that having gone across to the new platform, that the ability to leverage cloud services were enhanced versus in your old design? For example, what was your mix before you began moving across to the Nutanix platform of between cloud services versus on-prem as it is compared to now? And secondly, did you do the SD WAN stuff first or after? Because one of the biggest issues we have right now where we are is the telecoms platform is just not reliable. MPLS is a disaster. So a lot of what we want to do vis-a-vis cloud only or cloud hybrid is actually waiting on some level of stability with that whole SD-WAN arrangement. So,
Right.
Okay.
All right. I may have to come back to the first question. Regarding the second one, if I had to prioritize, I would say make sure your network connectivity is solid. That's my opinion. Because what will happen is you're going to start thinking some of the issues maybe reside with your server stack, but it doesn't. So once we took the noise out of the network, and there was a lot of noise. Once we did that, using the internet is what we're using. We're not using MPLS. We're then able to zero in, and the benefits from the Nutanix implementation was just that much clearer and smoother, right? So I would say if you had to prioritize and you have to pick one, make sure your network is stable, solid, and clean. The first question, could you remind me of that again?
Cloud versus on-prem.
Oh, so being a manufacturing company, most of our processes are it's on-prem. So we have an ERP solution, which is, you may consider like Dynamics. We also have other operational technology that sits on servers here in Jamaica. So we cannot move everything to the cloud. I wouldn't recommend it, not for JA. If we're in the States or somewhere else that had a lot of networks, I would do that. But being manufactured, you want to keep that to your plant as much as possible for transactional speeds. At least for right now. I'm actually looking to make sure things are 10 gig all the way through for future play, and especially when you consider IoT and some of the other application predictive analytics you want to get done, the throughput of these things. They're small transactions, but you could flood your network if it goes down to 1 gig. So once I have that, I may be more inclined to move some of those production things up to the cloud. But right now, most of it for the production is here. Everything else, if it's not running my plant, I'm thinking put it in the cloud for a number of reasons. Security, failover, we all know the deal. That's why I'm able to keep the team so small. So I move things that help us make money, I want to have more control over it. I want it here. Things that are support and back offices, my view is I put it in the cloud. If that goes down a day or two or for whatever reason, that's fine. If an application goes down for an hour, there's a significant hit to the bottom line, if it's revenue generating. That's my approach. But with confidence in time, working with our telco provider, once I have the right QoSs and I see a certain trend, I may be apt to just move it.
Why is it that, in your thought process, you went through and you said, okay, I'm going to do something radically different and go with a software-defined data center, hyperconverged. And at the same time, you have your network. You have your network transitioning that you want to do, network improvements that you want to put in place. And at the same time, you're thinking software-defined WAN. Can you explain to the audience, what is it that went through your head in terms of your thought process? Because it seems to me that, any CIO that is thinking software-defined data center and at the same time, in a traditional environment, thinking about software-defined WAN and implementing them both around the same, in the same space of time, is taking a very big risk, and of course is going to be called an outcast, a radical, somebody who is, maybe a little kooky.
Well, that's true.
But really and truly, what went through your head, and what were some of the decisions that you made when you said, I'm going software-defined?
I'll go back a bit. So when you look at this, and most of you have experience putting this stuff in, there's a number of factors that contribute to me taking a leap of faith, right? One was cost. I have a certain budget, and we have to make this thing work, right? How do you maximize that investment? Two was the timeline I had to get it done, because our production wasn't where we wanted it to be, and the demand was coming. So, you have to kind of get ahead of the business. It's not just about building it for today. You want to make sure in the next 2 to 3 years, whatever you build, you can leverage, because you won't get the investment again. You need to maximize that return for 3 to 5 years. And the other thing that was going through my mind was I want something that was modern. I didn't want to go back 10 years, like some people told me I would. But I also wanted something that was proven. So I did my research. And I'm fortunate to have a network where I could pick up the phone and talk to people in different spaces who have done it. One of the guys I spoke to was the global CIO for Heinz. And he's also doing both, but it's taken him 4 years because Heinz ketchup is just massive. It's around the globe. It's everywhere, right? So when you talk to your colleagues and they're like, yes, or the others are saying, if I had the budget, I would do it, or I used to work here. I had some confidence, not just listening to Ondel and Gustav. There are people who said Nutanix works. So I had the confidence there. I know I needed to do it cost effective. I knew I had a certain time for him to get it done. Why did I do both at the same time? It was planning, right? So I knew the network would land before the data center for a number of changes for a number of reasons. We started with that one. We had a rollout that we did location by location to get it done. So based on that planning, it's just integrating your projects. I have a project management background, so seeing the connections kind of made sense to me. So having the right partnerships, having a proven product, having a tight budget, having a team that was, and I haven't given enough credit to my team. Having a team that was willing to roll up their sleeves and get it done and take the journey with me was a big deal. So I wanted the team to be aboard, because if your team isn't sold on it, it's not going to get done. And a lot of the questions I heard around hardware, it's the same questions around network. You're trained a certain way, you're certified in a certain way of thinking, and they thought that the software could handle it. That requires some convincing, right? So once all those orientations were in place, I said, all right, we have the right ingredient to take that leap of faith. And it wasn't, once you understand you're comfortable, it's not even a leap of faith anymore. It just sounds more foreign right now, but it works.
So right now you have 6 U's running 67 terabytes of data storage.
We have more than 67 terabytes, but that's what's mostly in our data center, right? We have other servers around, but in terms of what's running most of those terabytes, yes. I think we go up to, how much terabytes do we go up to? Was it 100?
You're over 100. They are over 100.
Over about 100 terabyte bucks.
Yes.
So I'm going to give you some insights to that. There was a gentleman from another company we had engaged to partner with, and he is what they call a Microsoft MVP. You familiar with that term? So these guys are like the top 5% certified Microsoft DBAs. If you're MVP in anything Microsoft says you're a thought leader. They actually go to these folks to determine what they want to build. And he was pushing for me to get another SAN, flash-based SAN. There were some benefits that he said he realized there was a lot of congestion in our current SAN, and he was trying to convince us that going to a flash-based SAN with certain technologies he was going to deploy was the way to go. And I said, well, we're thinking of hyperconverged, and this is the direction we would like to go. And I had him, he was getting much more technical than I had the appetite for, right? So I actually had him speak to the Gustavo, and in 15 minutes he came back and said, wow, I didn't know it could do all that. If that's the case, go for it. And they got into what I call the matrix. So Gustavo would have to tell you exactly what it was all about. But for him to come back and say, Sheldon, if this thing can do this, I think you should. I didn't know the technology could do all that. So again, a lot of confidence was there with having the right conversations to say this is worth going for. And at the end of the day, I'm just going to tell you the theme. The theme is we want to be agile. Right now, if 3 cloud services come out, we want to be able to ramp that up and use it quickly. The whole idea is to simplify things to the point where you can integrate with any best of breed product that you can, right? So the network gives you that agility, the software-defined network. You could reroute traffic. It doesn't require a lot of deployment. The last mile conversion to it does if you use the right appliance, but you could virtualize it. You don't have to use appliances. It just allows for a tremendous amount of flexibility. I've had situations where we needed to do a backup restore, and by using the SD WAN, instead of getting 50 megabits of speed, we turned it up to 200 by pushing a button. By the time I told my guy and walked away, he said done. And it was now bursting up to 200 megabytes. So having that flexibility and agility and baked in security, and it's encrypted, I could go on and on. There's just a tremendous, Cable and Wireless, they're friends. They helped us do some things, and I know it's on their roadmap to do this, and I know Digicell's thinking the same thing. They just haven't deployed these kind of services yet, but a lot of services around the world are doing it. A lot of the communication service providers. You could go to them for these SD WAN. In the region, it's not done. But that was a big enabler. And it actually bought us time to make sure we could ask the right questions about Nutanix, right? By having the network squared away, we kind of timed it right to where we could overlay it.
One last question. I think one of the biggest sells about this new paradigm is that you can create essentially a heap of services or capacity that you can then divvy out to the different persons, whether it be DevOps or your production environment. I didn't hear much said about do you do stuff like microsegmentation. I heard Gustavo mention earlier about that you can save on licenses for NSX because it's built in or it's a service or a feature. But did you take advantage of the microsegmentation functionality of Nutanix, because that's the next issue to deal with once you start to have a pool resources. How do you figure out who is what tenant or what security levels, what DMZs, that kind of stuff?
Right. So I'm going to say this. That's what's exciting about applying in the future. We haven't gone to that yet. Like anything you quickly deploy, one was to remove the pain. Now you need time to plan and take it to the next maturity level. So we haven't maximized the investment. He could speak to it in terms of future play. But we have certain workloads that we're looking to do some of that with. Conceptually, we haven't planned it out. We haven't applied it yet. We came aboard. When did Stacy? When did we launch Nutanix? Last year, end of last year.
November was the last installation,
Right.
and we had the previous installation
Right.
in May.
Right. So if you think about it, I'm just gonna be candid. I mean, everyone here, I think most of you are Best Rest fans. November, it's all about getting ready for chicken, for Christmas rush. You know, that's planning. And coming out of that, we have some other solutions around DR and the rest. So the time to sit down and do that and map it out hasn't been there, but going into the future, we're starting to plan to explore that. Gustavo, you want to add more on?
No, I think that's right. They haven't got to that level yet. The good news is we decided to add it to the platform. It's there. Now, if you use, like in this case, they are using VMware, so they will have to use the microsegmentation in the VMware family of products. If you use Acropolis, we already added that, and it's ready. It was announced a few weeks ago. So that's ready.
All right, great. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.